Relatively quiet at the moment, but a different scene expected in the coming days in both venues when the mayor will have to enter a plea to the charges.
We have team coverage here for you tonight at 11. Political reporter Marcia Kramer has been working the story all night. Let's begin with Allie Bauman live outside Gracie Mansion tonight. Allie, what's the scene there?
Well, Christina Maurice, in a taped video message sent through his attorney tonight, Mayor Adams is maintaining his innocence, though he doesn't specify what exactly he's being charged with. Adams said that he's been fighting injustices throughout his life and vowed to fight what he calls these injustices with every ounce of his strength and spirit.
It is now my belief that the federal government intends to charge me with crimes. If so, these charges will be entirely false, based on lies.
In a video statement Wednesday night, Mayor Eric Adams says he will fight back against the federal criminal charges.
I always knew that if I stood my ground for all of you, that I would be a target, and a target I became.
Over the last few months, federal investigators have raided the homes and seized electronics from the mayor and many in his inner circle, including former NYPD Commissioner Edward Caban, who stepped down earlier this month.
So there's a traffic jam of investigations, subpoenas, searches, devices being seen. But this is the first thing we've seen that will actually result, we are told, in a charge being brought forth tomorrow.
Hi everyone, welcome back to the Rick Mill channel. Today we're going to be diving into some major news that's been making headlines everywhere. Eric Adams' indictment. We're going to be breaking down some of the details of this case, discuss the charges he's facing, and explore what this could mean for his career and political landscape. Make sure you stay tuned to the latest updates and insights. I appreciate everybody that's been dropping in, showing love. Go ahead and drop a subscribe, a comment. And let's go ahead and deep dive into more and see what's going on with Eric Adams. It's pretty shocking that this is actually coming to light, to see this is actually happening. He's been huge for New York from what I've been seeing. So hey, let's see what's been going on.
Earlier Wednesday, Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez became the most prominent Democrat to call for the mayor to resign, posting on social media, "The flood of resignations and vacancies are threatening government function. For the good of the city, he should resign." Adams shot back, penning in part for anyone who self-righteously claims people charged with serious crime should not be in jail, to now say that the second black mayor of New York should resign because of rumors and innuendo is the height of hypocrisy. Wednesday, the outgoing school's chancellor insisted his decision to retire in the middle of the academic year this December was made before federal agents raided his home, which the 62-year-old shares with fiancée First Deputy Mayor Sheena Wright and the home of his brother, Deputy Mayor for Public Safety Philip Banks.
David is my brother, and the Banks family are my family. I valued Phil, who rose to the level of being the highest ranking person in charge of the police department, patrol force.
And tonight, the mayor is getting ahead of what's becoming a growing list of calls for his resignation, saying in the statement that he can understand why New Yorkers would be concerned that he can't continue to do the job while facing these accusations, but saying, quote, "New Yorkers elected me to lead this city, so, quote, lead it, I will." Live outside Gracie Mansion on the Upper East.
And to my understanding, as of now, there haven't officially been any charges against Eric Adams. Pretty much they're referring to a hypothetical or fictional scenario, but they'll need to provide more context as to what's going on in regards to these charges. I remember they did the same type of raid on Diddy's place earlier in the year, about 6-7 months ago. And now we're seeing everything that's unfolding from what they confiscated from the Diddy case to 1,000 bottles of baby oil and everything. So it looks like they're going to be doing the same type of investigation to see what charges they're going to be bringing against the mayor. This is wild, man. If you've seen what's been going on with Fannie Willis over in Atlanta, it just seemed like there's a lot of corruption going on at the government level. Let's go ahead and continue on and see what else they have to say.
East Side, Allie Bauman, CBS News, New York.
All right, Allie, thank you.
And we're joined now by political reporter Marcia Kramer. A whole lot to go through here, Marcia. The angry, defiant mayor tonight. We looked at him there requesting an immediate trial. That's a stunning thing to do. What's going on there?
I think that he absolutely believes that he did nothing wrong. And you heard in his statement that he's going to fight this with every ounce of his strength and his spirit. And I think that he intends to try to prove that he did nothing wrong. The real question is, what are the charges and who else may be involved, and what charged with as well?
You know, Marcia and I interviewed the mayor back in November during a live broadcast, and I asked him point blank if he felt he was being targeted. He gave a political correct answer, but tonight he alluded to something else in that video statement. He believes he is being targeted.
Well, he believes, according to that statement, he believes that he was targeted by the Justice Department after he publicly attacked the immigration policies of the Biden administration. And I think that you can understand that some New Yorkers may believe that what he says is true, because he did take a very strident stance against the president's immigration policies at a time when the president was running for re-election and really cared about that. And it was sort of interesting that the raid that was done on the home of his chief fundraiser, Breonna Suggs, was on the very morning that he was in Washington at the White House for a conference on immigration, and he had to turn around and come back. There's a nexus there.
He really feels he can beat this. Does that appear to be a real thing? I mean, like you said, an everyday person may look at this and say, look, he feels he fought immigration policies and now he's being persecuted. He really feels he has a case.
Well, here's the thing. Public corruption charges and cases are very difficult to prove. And even in cases where there's been convictions, like Joe Percoco, who was a top aide to Governor Cuomo, they are overturned. So he does feel he has a chance. And remember, if he fights it and he gets an immediate trial, I mean, I don't know how immediate it can be. Federal government takes a long time. But if he does, he might be able to even beat it, and he could conceivably run for re-election. Hard to believe, but he could.
You've been covering politics in this city for
a long time.
Just a minute.
A minute or two, Marcia. Historically speaking, have you ever seen anything like this happen so quickly? I mean, the former commissioner resigns 2 days after the acting commissioner is in office. His home is also raided. So many dominoes falling so quickly.
Well, remember that this probe actually began last November, so it's 10 months. So it's not as if it was just a minute. It just seems like it's very big because all of a sudden a whole bunch of things happened. They served more subpoenas this summer. They then sought subpoenas from some of his top aides. What it says is that they have developed information as they started to branch out from this probe, and that's caused them to seek more information. And that's why they were seeking the phones and documents from people going forward.
Widening the net.
All right. The politics, so much going on here. What does your gut tell you? What's going to happen next?
Well, I think that's what's going to happen is two things. Number one, there's going to be an avalanche of calls for him to resign.
There are tonight.
And then you have to see whether he agrees. But then there's another thing that has to happen. The governor of the state of New York does have the ability to remove him from office. It remains to be seen whether she does or whether she lets him have his day in court. But there's going to be pressure on her as well to remove him from office. We have to wait to see what happens. Because remember this.
Like, isn't that wild? Isn't that wild? This man was literally fighting for these immigration laws. I believe making New York a sanctuary city. He was even the one that gave Diddy the key to the city. And now he's facing charges to be indicted, and they can possibly remove him from his position just based on the allegations. It hasn't even been proven yet. So it makes you really wonder what has been found in these raids. Like they're raiding all these high-profile people's houses and finding all these. There's so much that's being brought to light this year. Cat Williams was not lying when he said 2024 was going to be the year. Because, boy, they all getting it.
He needs to fill out the rest of his government. A lot of people have resigned. How is he going to get people to take these jobs if he's under a cloud?
And how does the city continue to run under this kind of situation?
Well,
right?
He has an argument to that. He says, I've been investigated since November. Crime is down. Jobs are up. Tourism is up. I got a record. That's his answer.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll go with that for now. To be continued for sure. Marcia, thank you.
Marcia, thank you for that insight. Let's continue our coverage now with Hofstra University law professor James Sample. Professor, you know, we don't know what these charges are just yet. The indictment remains sealed. But do you think that they must be pretty serious if you're going to charge a sitting mayor of New York City?
Christine, I do think that that is likely the case. And I think that what we know about the Southern District of New York and federal prosecutors in general is that they are not likely to bring a case against a prominent figure unless they really feel that they've got the entire thing buttoned up very tightly. We don't know. There are essentially, part of the complexity here is that there are 4 separate investigations. The 3 primary investigations and the 3 likely sources of the charges, or one of the 3, this seems like the most likely and the one that's being reported as, according to the insiders who seem to have sources on this, that this is tied to likely Mayor Adams acting as an unregistered foreign agent, and particularly vis-a-vis his relationship with members of the Turkish government and Turkish nationals funneling campaign contributions to him in exchange for some official action. But as Marcia said, corruption charges are very, very difficult to prove. And even on appeal, as she said, where there have been some convictions, it is difficult to establish that the official act, the quid pro quo that was taken in response to even foreign donations, is one that can be categorized as corrupt as opposed to politics as usual. This will be an interesting matter for sure.
Professor, before we let you go, what are the mechanics of what happens next? The indictment is unsealed, then what happens to the mayor? Does he go into a courtroom? Does he face a judge? What happens?
The indictment is likely to be unsealed tomorrow. It appears that Mayor Adams will probably negotiate a surrender. That may be tomorrow. It may be early next week. If he's ultimately in a position where he has to resign, then Jumaane Williams, the public advocate, would take over, and Williams would have to call for a special election, which would be 80 days within the 80 days after Williams called for it.
And then there's another election that's already scheduled for next year. That would take place as well.
Correct.
Okay, exactly how many mayors we would have at the same time, it's almost unclear.
One step at a time.
Exactly.
One step at a time.
Professor, thank you so much. We appreciate it tonight.
Thank you, Professor. And do stay with CBS News New York as we continue to cover this historic indictment. Our morning team will be on top of any development.
Man, that's just wild, man. Like, everything that's going on today, man, everything that's being exposed, whether it be New York, whether it be Ohio, whether it be Atlanta, whether it be California, whether it be, like, it's just too much going on in the world. Like, how do you even know where it is that's safe to live anymore? This is just too much, man. Let's see if we can find some more details as to what's going on in regards to this as well, too, to see a little bit more what we can expect. Apparently, they're stating that this indictment is going to be unsealed tomorrow, and we're going to find out exactly what he's being alleged against him or he's being charged with. So it's going to be interesting to see that. Likely we're going to be probably doing a follow-up on this, doing a part 2, just to see what's going to be following next. Because it does seem that it's just being wild, man. This is just wild. What do y'all think about everything that's going on, man? If you're following me this far, man, go ahead and drop a comment, man. Share your views, because it's not just New York, it's all these states, man. Is this really what's been happening at the federal level? Is this what our tax dollars has been going to as we've been working so long and they've been taxing us all these years? This is just wild, man. Let go.
On the bottom of your screen, no, this isn't a drill. So here's what we can tell you. The indictment is sealed. We don't know what the charges are, but you have probably heard a lot of headlines about the New York City mayor and his top administrators all being under a cloud of suspicion and investigation over the last year. Last November, agents even pulled him aside on the street and pushed away his security detail. Think about that for a minute. New York City's mayor is on the streets of New York, and his security detail is moved away from him so that agents could seize his electronic devices, his phones. That was a massive headline. I thought it was more recent, but it was November. So the feds have had his phones for a very long time. Then, one by one, members of administration.
I ain't hear about that. So they been had his phones and they been doing investigations. Oh man, that's wild, y'all.
His administration had their phones seized, some houses raided, and the investigation got deeper and deeper. It's now sort of up to like 4 investigations. And that's just to name that off the top of my head. This one tonight is yielded from the FBI investigation of the mayor himself. There's the U.S. Attorney investigation of his deputy mayors, school chancellor, special assistant to the mayor, about contracts over migrant services that were allegedly funneled to friends and associates. There's the investigation into the police commissioner. The police commissioner and his twin brother allegedly shaking down nightclubs around New York City regarding protection. There is another investigation into foreign influence that involved the U.S. attorney in Brooklyn. Possibly that there's alleged influence recruiting in the mayor's highest senior official positions, China in particular. There's been discussion of the Turkish consulate and that there may have been some push by the mayor to get the fire commissioner to approve fire standards in a faster pace for the Turkish consulate, and possibly quid pro quo alleged that the mayor may have received some special gifts from the Turks because of that, whether it was airplane tickets or seats or other perks. And that expands to an even further investigation of other nations that may be involved in this international investigation, including Israel and China and South Korea and Uzbekistan and others. So just a cloud of investigation for the last year, and one by one, people dropping out of his administration, resigning, including even his top legal counselor just had resigned recently. Our Kelly Meyer at the White House gave me a quick heads up to tell me that the president is supposed to be landing soon at the White House and will be stepping off Marine One. Obviously, the press corps is going to want to know if the president will have anything to say or if he'll even stop for any questions, because Mayor Adams was with the president tonight. They were at a reception. You know, it's the UN week in New York, so all the biggest world leaders are in New York City, and the president was here. Mayor Adams was at a reception tonight, not just with President Biden, but also with the Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, and with the National Security Council Coordinator for Strategic Communications, AKA spokesman, John Kirby. And then Chief Humanitarian and Chef Jose Andres was there as well. So President Biden's supposed to be getting back to the White House. We're getting our cameras trained to see if when he steps off Marine One, if he will just bypass the reporters and their questions, or if he will stop to make a comment. I am more than certain that the president was briefed on this one, because the federal government does not arrest the mayor of the largest city, the 110th mayor of the largest city in the nation. Not arrest, but indict. The arrest likely, we're told, is to be a surrender, a coordinated surrender, a negotiated surrender, and an appearance tomorrow before a magistrate. All of this is just such a shock. I mean, a week ago, I was talking to you about Diddy being indicted, and then the feds swooped in and said, no, that negotiated surrender, no. They came in a week earlier and you know, took Diddy into custody and booked him into the MDC in Brooklyn, Metropolitan Detention Center. That's where the federal inmates are locked up. I'm not going to suggest for a minute that that's what's going to happen to the mayor. To my knowledge, even though the indictment is sealed, we don't think that the charges are violent, that's for sure. This is a corruption investigation. And so if there is processing tomorrow after his appearance before the magistrate, where you just heard earlier, the process would be he would go through pre-trial protocols, and that is being fingerprinted and booked, photographed, more than likely a mugshot, but that won't be released. And then more than likely bonding out. So it's kind of the same thing, if you remember former President Trump, when he was indicted and brought in Georgia. It was basically in one door, out the other. And then the process took its course. And that's usually what happens with, you know, high-ranking federal politicians. And these are not the kinds of charges where there's violence involved. So it is a whole other kettle of fish. Now, that doesn't mean that the feds wouldn't be concerned about flight risk and witness tampering. That was something we heard in Diddy's case, right? The reason that P. Diddy couldn't sway the federal government to release him on bail, even though he offered up a $50 million bond, was that the feds believed he was too risky, that he might try to corrupt witnesses, that P. Diddy, if he were released on his own recognizance, even under, you know, a house monitoring situation, an ankle bracelet, etc. Even
and it's wild that they're mentioning Diddy, guys. Like, think about it. You think Diddy got anything to do with this? Like how big does this all go? Like what's the bigger picture? Like all right, we're getting all the in-depth details, but what's the bigger picture behind this? It's amazing that this is even happening. I'm speechless, completely speechless. Let's go ahead and finish this out, y'all.
With the promises he wouldn't see any females other than his mothers of his children and his attorneys. They believed that there was too much risk for P. Diddy in releasing him, that he would corrupt the witnesses. He would try to tamper with that case. Would that happen with the mayor of New York City? I have no idea. It would be just another cascading seismic headline if that were the case. But my suspicion is that he will be released after an appearance with the magistrate tomorrow. But the passport issue is interesting as well. That he would likely have to surrender his passport. Whether that's already happened in a negotiated surrender or whether that would happen tomorrow would not be unusual for a person under a federal indictment to have to surrender a passport. No idea what the charges are, so I can't even tell you what the potential exposure is for a sentence. That is also really important when you're talking about bail. If you're being told that you likely won't walk out of jail again, or you leave with a toe tag based on your age and the sentencing, that's also impetus for someone to flee. Again, one of the most recognizable people in the world, but I said that about Diddy. So again, huge headlines. Do they...
Yo, that's just wild. That's just wild, Rick fan, to think about it. Mayor Eric Adams is now being indicted. What do y'all think about this? Like seriously, let's have a serious conversation in the comments, man. Go ahead and drop a comment below. If you in New York and you're going through the whole immigrant crisis, let me know how this is affecting you. Drop a comment. Let me know what y'all seeing. It's just been a wild case of everything that's been going on, man. But I appreciate everybody that's been dropping in. Shout out to everybody that's been showing love to the Rick Mill family. Shout out to all the new subscribers, and I wish that everybody have a blessed evening. And y'all take care, man. Y'all be safe. Gang.